Good evening. This is an extraordinary meeting of Burnley Borough Council on the 30th of July 2020. Present at this meeting are Councillor Wajid Khan, Chair of the Council, Councillor Mark Townsend, Vice Chair of the Council. Also in attendance are Councillors Anwar, Councillor Baker, Councillor Birtwistle, Councillor Charlie Briggs, Councillor Bill Brindle, Councillor Paul Campbell, Councillor Frank Cant, Councillor Tom Thomas, Councillor Ivor Emo, Councillor Dale Ferrier, Councillor Andy Fewings, Councillor B Foster, Councillor Sue Graham, Councillor Sarah Hall, Councillor John Harbour, Councillor Istiak, Councillor Johnston, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Tracy Kennedy, Councillor Arif Khan, Councillor Lubna Khan, Councillor Shabana Khan, Councillor Gordon Lishman, Councillor Margaret Lishman, Councillor Sherish Lone, Councillor Tony Martin, Councillor Lorraine Mahana, Councillor Mottershead, Councillor Andrew Newhouse, Councillor Leanne Pate, Councillor Emma Payne, Councillor Mark Payne, Councillor Asif Raja, Councillor Anne Royal, Councillor Andrew Tatchell, and Councillor Cosima Townley. Also present, officers present are Lukman Patel, the Chief Operating Officer, Catherine Warby, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, Imelda Grady, Democracy Officer, Christine Wood, Democracy Officer, Mark Hyman, Technical Support and Live Stream, and myself, Chris Gay, who is the meeting host. I'll now hand over to the Worshipful Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Wajid Khan.
Councillor Pete McCann is here now.
Yeah, Councillor Peter McCann and Councillor Shah Hussain have joined the meetings.
Noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody watching from home, and good evening, members. Item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meeting of the Council. I will move those minutes. Mr. Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
I second those minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there is no dissent, I will take those minutes as approved. The meeting host, as in Chris, will unmute all microphones. Please remain silent unless you wish to dissent. Microphones will then be muted again. Chris, fire away. Okay.
Yeah.
Just let me, my camera just, okay, here we go. Here we are. Put my camera back in action again. Yes, that's fine. Those minutes are approved. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest.
Matt, it's Councillor Andy Fewings here. I want to disclose an interest in a commercial premises in Burnley, which has a cafe business in it for item 6B. I've provided quite a lot of information to the council legal officers today, and I'm hopeful for a dispensation, but for transparency, I'm disclosing that now.
Thank you, Councillor Fewings. In relation to the dispensation, can I bring Lukman in?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have to say that I've only received some verbal communication in that regard because I have been engaged in meetings. I believe it's come on this the information's come this afternoon. Councillor Fewings, can you just shed light in relation to the nature of the interest and why you believe that you want a dispensation? Just for the benefit of members, according to the Constitution, I have been given delegated authority to. Sorry about that. I've been given delegated authority to grant dispensation to members subject to consultation with the Council's Chair of Audit and Standards Committee, which is Councillor Paul Campbell.
Sure. So I've updated my declaration of interest form, but it's not updated on the website. Until recently, my husband was the owner of the cafe business at 160 St James's Street. They're no longer the owner of that cafe, and so we're not operating any sort of catering business from that building, but still under a different art organisation is a tenant of the premises.
We're just having some technical issues because Councillor Campbell needs to come in on this particular.
Well, I haven't closed the meeting yet. We just bear with me.
Just bringing Councillor Campbell back in to look at to see if he's okay with your being dispensed. Am I right?
Councillor Fewings, you might have to just explain that again because I think Councillor Campbell might have missed some of it. So apologies for having to repeat it. Just bear with me.
Could you just hold Councillor Fumes until we get Councillor Campbell back in? Sorry about
Yes.
technical problems, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just need to go back into the meeting myself, Paul. Can you just check your email, see if it works?
in the meantime, are there no other declarations of interest? Are there any other? Okay. So we'll just wait for some clarification on this.
Mr. Mayor, just to speed it up, I think Paul's going to use my microphone to speak.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, but we can't get Councillor Campbell back into the meeting at the moment. He's going to use Leanne's device.
Okay, just bear, that's fine for the time being, but just bear that in mind in terms of voting and stuff like that.
Of course, Mr. Mayor, yeah.
Okay, so you'll have to do is verbal voting, I think. Okay, Councillor Campbell, are you there? Do you want to just say that what you said before, Councillor Fumes, to Councillor Campbell, because you didn't hear before? Go ahead, Councillor Fumes.
Yeah, sure. So as I've said, basically there used to be a interest in a cafe business at the premises 160 St James's Street. My husband no longer has an interest in the catering side of that business, but still has an interest under an art organisation in the building itself. They're two completely separate entities. But because of the historic nature of running that cafe, I wanted to disclose it here and ask for the dispensation to vote on 6B.
Thank you, Councillor Fewings. Yes, having looked at the case, spoken with Luckman, I think because your interest is extremely limited or possibly none, I think granting dispensation in the case is appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. In relation to it, I do agree with the observations by Councillor Campbell, and in this instance only, I'm happy to grant the dispensation. Just a point to know, can we formalise this arrangement going forward? Because this seems to crop up regularly. If that's okay with you, Councillor Fumes, I'm happy to pick that up with you next week if that's okay, so that we can get this squared off once and for all, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'm surprised that other councillors with interest in commercial premises and food businesses are not having the same issue, but I'm happy to spend time to work through that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fumes. Appreciate that. And that's all sorted. So we can now move on to item 3 on the agenda, Mayor's communications.
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we now move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which are public questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None have been received once again, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Luckman. Item number 5 on the agenda, motions to the council. Can I point out to members that once the motion has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum amount of 5 minutes. Members may then only speak again on an amendment. Councillor Fewings, will you please move the motion regarding the human rights violations against the LGBTIQA+ community in Poland?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the motion, but before doing so, I'd just like to say a few words. So Burnley will forever be remembered for the leading role that it has played in our country's struggle for LGBTIQA+ rights. Two significant events stand out and are mentioned in the text of the motion. They're important enough to have been commemorated as stage plays. They are the story of Mary Winter, a Burnley bus driver sacked for wearing a lesbian liberation badge in 1978. Not supported by her trade union, Mary fought back against her employers using a national network of women's groups. Mary Winter then staged a demo outside Burnley bus station, and it was one of the first of its kind on this issue. 8 years before that, 49 years ago to this very day, a landmark public meeting was held in Burnley Central Library, and our great town found itself at the forefront of fighting for gay rights. I'm not going to go too much into the history of the meeting itself. If there's time, I'm sure Councillor Gordon Lishman, who has a lot more information about it and can inform members of the groundbreaking significance of that day. But the fact is that the people in this town have been championing gay rights for a generation, and we owe it to their legacy to call out homophobia wherever it raises its ugly head. Councillor Sarah Hall and I have been speaking to members of the queer community in Burnley who are from Poland. Sarah will read some words from a Polish man who was born and lives in our town. Sorry, he was born in Poland but lives in our town. But I want to remind members that these people can vote in our town and are a real part of our community. This man doesn't feel comfortable putting their real name on the record for fear of recriminations here or in Poland. And I think we should take a moment to let that sink in. It's truly disappointing to read some of the comments from members this past week. You wouldn't think that it was 2020. I do hope they've taken some time to reflect before choosing to speak on this motion today. What will residents in this town think of councillors who are prepared to defend a homophobic regime when we have over 740 Polish citizens living, working and contributing to our town? Have we already forgotten the struggles the people of this town had to endure? And if we're to defend the rights of others like Mary, then we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. We may be about to leave the EU, but we are still Europeans. We may not have the power to change the law in Poland, but we do have a responsibility and a duty as community leaders to show solidarity with the LGBTIQA+ community of this town and our Polish residents, regardless of their sexuality or gender identity. I urge you to think again before coming forward today to say that they are not relevant, that the loss of their freedoms that many of us take for granted, are simply not our concern. I call on members from all parties not to seek to shut down this important discussion, and I urge you to support this motion. I so propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fewings. Councillor Leanne Pate, will you second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second the motion and I reserve a right to speak.
Okay. Any member, Chris, can you just collate any members that you've got there that want to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sarah Hall has requested to speak, as has Councillor Gordon Lishman, Councillor Tom Commis, and Councillor Dale Ferrier and Howard Baker.
So let's just repeat that again. Councillor Hall.
Yeah. Councillor Hall first, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and after who's named after that, please? Just for, can you list
Councillor Gordon Lishman next.
Yeah.
Then Councillor Commis.
Yeah.
Councillor Ferrier.
Yeah.
And finally, for now, Councillor Baker.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Sarah Hall, please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Fewings says, I've got a statement from a resident which I would like members to hear. It reads, "Hi, I am Darius. I live in Burnley. I've been in this country for 12 years. I work hard and pay my taxes here. I'm originally from Poland. I am a gay man. I am not out to all my family in Poland. The situation has gotten worse under President Duda, and it continues to make it difficult for me to be at peace with myself and be honest with my family. Imagine having to lie about yourself to your own father. When you visit your family, it should be a happy time, but it causes me great pain as I have to pretend to be someone that I'm not. I cannot ever take a partner home with me. My British LGBTIQA+ friends cannot visit Poland with me. Poland must uphold human rights for everyone who lives or visits there. It would mean a lot to me for my hometown to stand up for my rights and the rights of all LGBTIQA+ people in Burnley. Thank you for your time." As Darius feels uncomfortable speaking publicly for themselves, so I feel it is important to support this motion as we have the chance to use our voice for those who don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall, for that. Can I ask Councillor Lishman to speak, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You accused me recently of referring to the town's history. I don't know how many others here might actually remember this event. I wasn't there, but it was actually addressed by a friend of mine who was, in fact, my former university tutor, who went on to be a parliamentary candidate in Burnley in 2 general elections in 1979 and 1983. He's a man called Michael Steed. He now lives in Canterbury, and he's just had his 80th birthday. Talking to Michael, he told me then what I hadn't realised was that this meeting in Burnley was the first public meeting anywhere in the UK on gay rights issues since the passing of the 1967 Act, which for the first time in nearly a century legalised homosexual relations between men. So it is a matter of importance in the history of gay rights. It's also a matter of importance to our residents. Perhaps somewhere up to 6,000 of our residents, those from Poland, but also gay people who feel that part of their continent is now closed off from them and that they can't actually visit it. I'd like to tell members also that that meeting, although it was conducted with very strong opinions on both sides of the debate, was conducted with mutual respect and with a willingness carefully to listen to other points of view and to respond to them. I wish, but do not believe, that a similarly contentious meeting in Burnley today could be treated in the same way, and that participants would treat each other with that sort of respect. In my political lifetime, and indeed in my wife's, because we campaigned together on this issue right back in the early 1970s, it has been the change in attitudes on gay rights and towards gay and lesbian and others has been absolutely profound and massive. And that, I think, is an important thing for us to celebrate. I'm pleased in a way that the next 2 speakers are people who may have experience of the views of the Conservative candidate in the elections following that meeting at the end of that decade. That was Anne Widdecombe. And I guess that there are people who will support her views on European matters now, and I would be interested to know if they supported her current views on these issues. The biggest change, and it's one absolutely overwhelmingly to welcome, is that in those days, the action against the intent to have a club for gay men at that time was led strongly by the Labour leader of the council, supported by the rest of the Labour group on the council. That change since then in attitudes has been truly worth marking. And I really would like to compliment the Labour Party on just how far they've come over that time. Today is the 49th anniversary of the meeting that's referred to. This day next year will be the 50th anniversary of that meeting, and I would like to suggest, and perhaps the relevant executive member could take this up, that we do in some way actually mark that decision to have that meeting which took place in Burnley. And just one final historical note, you know how much it cost to hire a room in Burnley Central Library in 1971? £3.05.
Very impressive.
I expect it's probably a little more nowadays. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, and thank you for that, Councillor Isham, for the historical significance of the motion. Can I ask Councillor Thomas to please come in and say his piece?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Fewings and Councillor Lishman to the evident passion that they've brought to this motion. Those of you that read my email that went round some councillors will not be surprised to know that I will not be supporting this motion. And I was slightly disappointed that Councillor Fewings seemed to imply that anyone who wasn't supporting that motion was in some way defending President Duda's government in Poland, which is not at all the case. It should be obvious to anyone who read that missive that my objection to this motion is firstly that it is completely against the constitution of this council and that motions of this sort ought not to be brought before the council, and if councillors wish to bring motions of this sort then they ought to seek to change the constitution of the council, which they're more than welcome to do. In general terms, we've heard two councillors give very involved speeches about history. Councillor Fewing suggests that we've got to stand up against homophobia and homophobic regimes wherever they are in the world. But of course, this motion does not stand up against homophobic regimes wherever they are in the world. It stands up against one, which is sadly one of very many homophobic regimes in the world. There are numerous countries in the world, Uganda, Iran, for example, where homosexual relationships are completely forbidden. I think in some cases on pain of death, which is certainly not what, as far as Poland have gone. So if we're really standing up against all these regimes, we're going to be here constantly, every meeting, with motions about items of foreign policy or foreign affairs. And in my view, that's not what the people of Burnley elected us for. It's not what they need us for. I think people in Burnley are more than capable, whether they're of Polish origin or not, of making their views known either to our government or to the Polish government. I just think this whole series of motions that we've had at every single council for the last, well, 4 or 5 occasions, it smacks to me of what I would call political LARPing or role-playing. It's not serious. We're sending letters to people that are just going to be ignored, quite frankly. If you look at the number of views that these meetings get, it's 50 or so people watch this. We're not speaking for Burnley. We're just indulging ourselves with these motions. There's a crisis going on, and this meeting really was not intended to discuss this matter. And I don't think we're doing any good either to the people of Burnley generally, or to the Polish people in Burnley, or to gay people in Poland by passing this motion. And I just think, from my point of view, I've decided that whenever a motion like this comes up, whatever it says, I have to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cummins. Can I invite Councillor Ferry to speak now, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, firstly, I'll cover a couple of points on this motion. First, I do support in general what the motion is saying. I mean, for instance, my best friend from high school is a member of the gay community. So I've got to think how I feel if he was persecuted in a similar way in this country. And again, I also agree to a certain extent when Councillor Cummins mentioned that this is one of many homophobic regimes in the world, such as Uganda, like you mentioned. But of course, Poland is considered a developed Western democracy. So I'm quite saddened and surprised how a country such as Poland can be doing such a thing, really. And that's even considering they've lived under many decades of oppressive rule, first under Nazi Germany, then under the Soviet Union, until the early 90s. So I'd have thought they would have understood to a great extent what oppression means, and I thought we had to move away from that. But secondly, then also Councillor Cummins mentioned about, of course, the criteria for a motion such as this. I mean, I think the council, we need to clarify to where we draw the line on motions, as in what topic is deemed reasonable to discuss such as a motion like this, and what is too ineffective to the people of Burnley. We do need to clarify that line. Like I said, because always, if we're not careful, we can be indulging ourselves in topics which might not be the best interest of the people of Burnley, of course. But just to clarify.
But also, lastly, I will certainly echo Councillor, I think it was not Lishman, that's the one. Sorry, I forgot your name then. Councillor Lishman's remarks about a respectful debate among councillors, which is something has frayed slightly in the last number of years. That certainly are something I'll definitely support there. But overall, I'm supporting the motion based on the point I made earlier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferrier. Can we now move on to Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully you can hear me okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Fewings for bringing the motion. I totally agree with him personally that anything that where gay rights or LGBT and all the other bits, I can never remember all those initials, are brought forward are wrong. If one person is affected, never mind thousands, whatever, it doesn't matter. If one person's affected by this sort of thing, it is totally wrong. No matter where it is, and it's the same with race relations, exactly the same. One person is too many for me. However, tonight we're here, and I'm speaking tonight from now on as a councillor, not as a person. And I agree totally with Councillor Commis and Councillor Ferrier about the way the motions appearing on this are totally against the Constitution and do not affect the bearer and are not, if it's not the bearer's responsibility, and don't affect the bearer. So I would like to ask Councillor Fewings, when it comes to his closing speech, if he can answer the following questions, if he's got a piece of pad and paper. Question 1. You state in the motion that the Polish population as of March 2020 is some 740, but base this on the number of Polish nationals who have registered for settled status under the EU settlement scheme, but provide no evidence as to whether these applicants live or still live in Burnley or even Lancashire or whatever. Where do you get your evidence from that? Because you haven't presented any tonight to show that they're there. You state that following the re-election of President Duda, that the human rights of the Polish LGBT community will be further threatened. Poland is predominantly 95% Catholic country with a good democratic history and open elections. President Dudas's opponent at the recent election was a gentleman called, and I can't pronounce it, Trzaskowski or something. And although he supported and promoted civil partnership and some LGBT rights, more broadly was against many of the ideals of the LGBT community. Whichever way the vote had gone in Poland would not have led to a total acceptance of LGBT rights. What right do you feel, there's another question, sorry. What right do you feel this council has to interfere in a democratic country? You do not state evidence of the LGBT community being harassed or attacked. It appears that you just want more acceptance of LGBT ideals. Returning, question 4. Returning to the Polish inhabitants of Burnley, and for the sake of argument, accepting your figure of 740, can you please explain how many of these contacted you directly with regard to their concerns? And did they present you with a petition or other means of determining the level of affected people from this community? Thank you. And if you can answer all those in a way that I can do, I will vote for your motion. But if you can't, I will go alongside Councillor Commis and say, no, I'm not voting for the motion, only because it doesn't, it's the Constitution that's at fault, not your motion, Councillor Fewings.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Chris, I believe there's some more people that want to speak.
There is, Mr. Mayor. Just to let you know, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Roper, Councillor Paul Campbell is now back in the meeting, and Councillor Roper has joined us. There have been requests to speak on this item from Councillor Campbell, Councillor Shah Hussain and Marcus Johnson.
So Councillor Campbell, Councillor Hussain and Councillor Johnson.
That's right, Chair.
Councillor Campbell, please come in.
I have no request to speak. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, move on to Councillor. Thank you for that clarification. Can we move on to Councillor Hussain, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm quite supportive of the motion that Councillor Fewings has brought, and I'm a bit surprised as to why fellow councillors are sort of not being proactive with regards to issues that happens within the rest of the world. In some ways, we're a global community, and as such, we have interest everywhere. And if there is incidences of discrimination or what Councillor Fewings has suggested is happening, then we should raise it. We should raise those issues, raise it in the chamber, council chamber, and discuss it, and then look at ways where we can make representation. And I don't think it's a waste of time, and I don't think it's what people of Burnley don't want to discuss. Of course they do. I mean, in terms of discussion around issues and emotions, if people like us stood silent, then the issues around the world won't happen. And in terms of the motion itself, I see it's appropriate. There's a lot of Polish community that are residents in my ward, and I feel this motion would be representative of them. And I feel this motion is appropriate, and as such, we should support it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hussain. Can we now come to the last speaker before we return back to the seconders and movers? Can the last speaker on this issue, we have a healthy debate on this, would be Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't planning to speak on this item. I'm not gay and I'm not Polish, but that doesn't mean that I was unconcerned. The reason I'm speaking though is that people have been questioning the validity of this notice of motion. You know, I think there's a real danger that if we don't debate issues like this, as long as they are valid within the Constitution, that we will become insular, parochial, and an organisation that is only interested in the minutiae, and that would be so wrong. Now, Councillor Commis said that passing notices of motion like this is not doing any good. You know, I remember back to the days when we were fighting apartheid and when we were opposing the apartheid regime. And one of the things that swayed the South African government of the day was the overwhelming opposition, the torrent of opposition that came from public bodies throughout the world. Organisations like this, local authorities in America, across Europe, doing things to oppose apartheid. It wasn't the only reason that apartheid fell, but it did an awful lot of good. And that's why it's important that local authorities, small British local authorities across the world, pass notices of motion like this to say that in the year 2020, it is unacceptable to have an avowedly homophobic government in power in Poland. Now, I think the saddest thing about this is that Poland has an incredibly tragic history. During the war, I don't know if you know that 1 Pole in 3 died. And when I was in Poland some years ago on county business in Gdansk, I found the Polish people warm and friendly. But they're a very divided nation, because if you go to the cities, they'll be as appalled as Councillor Fewing is by this. But I understand if you go into the rural parts of Poland, and by God, it's backward, there is a support for this nationalist government. So I was quite moved by what Councillor Hall read out. I think it was important that she did, and I'm grateful to her for doing that. Mr. Mayor, we need to support this resolution. This is relevant. It's relevant to the people of Burnley, and it can and will do some good.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. I'm going to now return back to Councillor Leanne Pate, who had the reserved the right to speak. Councillor Pate, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know there has been a little danger of people spending more time debating the legality of the motion rather than the topic, but I think we've managed to come to a good balance. But throughout my life, it's been a legal right of anybody in Burnley to take a partner of their choosing, whether they're same sex or not, and regardless of whatever race, colour, creed, background they have. And I feel like, you know, in my lifetime, that has been the case. It feels like it should be the same for everybody, everywhere else in the world. And by standing up to this here, just like Councillor Johnson said, I think he said it very, very eloquently, and I don't need to repeat what he said. But just as he said, it's important that borough councils show that actually within our borough, we would never condone something like this. I also agree with Councillor Lishman, and I think it would be a marvellous tribute to Mary Winters and all the people that she fought for, to have some kind of acknowledgement of that, maybe by Burnley Library in the centre next year on the anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pate. Now I'll return back to Councillor Fewings for your active reply.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't plan on taking up much more time on this, actually. I think there's been a good discussion. I think that Councillor Marcus Johnson spoke very eloquently, and I'm grateful for his words. One of the things that he said was about getting into the minutiae of things, and I think that long list of questions from Councillor Baker is an example of that, and I do not propose to try to respond to them. You could have brought those, obviously this has been on the motion, but for 7 working days. So in future, please do come to me in advance if you have those kinds of queries, but it's probably not appropriate at this kind of meeting to go into that detail. What I would say is that the things that you talked about are the things that aren't relevant to the borough, and you've not noticed that actually, even in your speech, you said that one person affected by this is enough. And Councillor Hall read out the statement of one person who pays council tax in this borough is eligible to stand for a councillor. To be a councillor, they could be on the ballot paper, and yet their experience is not good enough for you. You want them to come here and justify it. No wonder they don't feel welcome to do that. And I think what I would say to Councillor Comis is that we have choices to make here tonight. You can make your point about this being unconstitutional, even though you've received legal advice that it is constitutional, and you can decide to vote against it. Or you can vote for it, and you can say, although I don't think that this should be heard, and I'll be taking that forward in member structures, and I'll be raising that to try and stop it. But I'm voting for it because the motion matters and it's important. And that doesn't put you at any disadvantage, but you're choosing to vote against it. And I worry that actually you're using the constitutional aspects as the reason for voting against it. Whereas actually, I prefer you looked at the substance of the motion and decided whether you supported it or not. And I think your residents would think that is what you should do as well. So thank you everyone for the lovely comments, and I'd like to ask for a named vote. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Councillor Fewings. You're asking for a named vote. Just one clarification, Councillor Townsend, you put a point of order. This is after this motion. Am I right, Councillor Townsend? Not yet, but after this motion.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. It's after this item on the agenda, I've stated.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Townsend. So now we can go to the vote. It's a recorded vote. So a recorded vote would mean a quarter of members present will have to be in favour. So we'll have to have electronic poll to clarify if we have enough support for the named recorded vote. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll open that poll now to agree to a named vote.
Just, and if any member can't see that vote in front of you, can you please unmute yourself and identify yourself so we can let Chris know, and we'll take your vote verbally.
Has everyone been able to vote? I think there's a few members who still to vote.
Who's missing, Chris? We weren't
I can't see, Chair, until we actually share the results. So verbally, has every member been able to vote?
Who has unmute if you haven't been able to vote for any reasons? No, Councillor Mottershead. Could you want to unmute and let Chris know your vote? For Chris. Thank you, Councillor Mottershead. Thank you. Okay. Everybody else voted? Yeah, if you haven't voted, let us know now by muting. Okay, that means everybody's voted. Chris?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'll close the poll. Let's just. It's gone into a countdown to close the chair, to close the poll, Mr. Mayor, which I've not seen before. Bear with us.
No problem.
Not sure whether my vote, I was struggling and I couldn't unmute myself either to let you know I was struggling, or go into the chat room to let you know, but I was voting for. I don't know if it's been recorded or not.
Okay, we'll be able to identify that shortly, but thanks for letting
Okay.
us know.
I'm able to share the votes now, Mr. Chair. I'll just scroll down if members can confirm as to whether their vote is correct and is visible.
Councillor Foster, yours has been recorded. Okay.
I know Councillor Mottershead has voted for.
Thank you.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Which means now we can go to the recorded vote. Who'll be taking that? Is it yourself or Imelda?
I can take
It
that.
will be Imelda, Chair. Just for confirmation, Chair, there are 33 for votes, 5 against, and 2 abstentions. So.
Okay, just thank you very much for that, Chris. Before you start, Imelda, can I ask every member to put themselves on mute and only unmute when your name is being read out, because it'll cause a lot of echoing. We had that last time. So fire away, Imelda.
Okay, all right. Councillor Anwar.
For
Councillor Baker.
the reasons that Councillor Fewings refused to give me enough information to make a balanced judgment, against.
Councillor Gordon Birtwistle. Councillor Birtwistle. Shall I come back to Councillor Birtwistle?
Oh, I'm opening out for.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Briggs. Councillor Briggs.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Brindle.
4.
Councillor Campbell.
4.
Councillor Cant.
4.
Councillor Commis.
Against.
Councillor Emore.
4.
Councillor Ferrier.
4.
Councillor Fewings.
4.
Councillor Foster. Councillor Graham. Councillor Graham. Councillor Graham, can you unmute yourself?
I can lip read that Councillor Graham can't unmute themselves.
Thank you.
I've just unmuted Councillor Graham, Chair.
Thank you. I am for. Thank you, Councillor Fewing.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
4.
Councillor Harbour.
4.
Councillor Hussain.
4.
Councillor Ischak. Councillor Ischak.
Councillor Ischak is now unmuted.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
4.
Councillor Kelly. Thank you. Councillor Kennedy. 4. Councillor Khan.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Lubna Khan. Councillor Lubna Khan.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Shabana Khan. 4. Thank you. Councillor Wajid Khan.
4, 4, 4.
Only one. Councillor Gordon Lishman.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Margaret Lishman.
4.
Councillor Sharice Lone.
4.
Councillor Peter McCann.
4.
Councillor Tony Martin.
4.
Lorraine Mahana.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Neil Mottershead.
4.
Councillor Andrew Newhouse.
4.
Councillor Leanne Pate.
4.
Councillor Emma Payne.
4.
Councillor Mark Payne.
4.
Councillor Asif Raja.
4.
Councillor David Roper. Councillor David Roper.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Royal.
4.
I don't think, is Councillor Sumner with us this evening? I haven't seen his name pop up.
No, through you, Chair. He is not at the meeting and not
Right, thank you.
been in touch.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Tatchell.
4.
Councillor Cosima Townley.
Abstain.
Thank you. And Councillor Mark Townsend.
4.
Thank you. That motion has been carried, Chair.
Thank you, Imelda. That motion has been carried. Okay. Councillor Townsend, you had a point of order. Can you please let me know under which rule of the council's procedures you want to make a point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to make a point of order under Council Procedure Rule 13M that allows the suspension of council procedure rules without notice. My motion is to suspend Council Procedure Rule 11 to allow us to discuss an urgent motion regarding local government reorganisation. And if you'll just bear with me, Mr. Mayor, I'll just give a few words of explanation of why I wish to do this. In the last couple of days, the council leader from Lancashire County Council has issued a letter to all district council leaders in Lancashire, which is basically proposing a unilateral reorganisation of the 15 Lancashire councils. It's a hostile approach. And basically it's to scrap all 15 councils in Lancashire and propose 3 unitary councils. I know there has been questions raised in the last day or so about openness and transparency and whether this way forward that I'm proposing tonight is open and transparent enough. But what I would suggest against this is, where is the openness and transparency that Councillor Driver at Lancashire County Council has displayed? He's just issued a letter without warning. As far as I can see, and I've no record anywhere, there's been no discussion at County Hall. It wasn't on a forward plan of decisions. There's been no cabinet decision. There's been no discussion at full council at Lancashire County Council. And there's just a letter arrived this week. So we need to react and respond quickly to this. Our next scheduled meeting after tonight is the 30th of September. It's highly likely that Lancashire County Council will be discussing this matter at their meeting on the 16th of August. So we can't wait. The council leader at the last meeting regarding combined authorities mentioned that trains were leaving the station. I'd rather just change that just a little bit and say the bus is about to leave the station. We're not on that bus. And Councillor Driver at Lancashire County Council is about to throw this council and the other 14 councils under the bus. And we need to be able to discuss this and respond accordingly. The motion, when we get to it in a few minutes' time, if this you allow council procedure rules to be suspended, doesn't propose a policy change of this council. It basically proposes an action plan change on how we need to deal with this going forward, because, and perhaps the council leader can confirm this for me, but I have heard that the Lancashire leaders meeting in August, where they should have been discussing what happened at our last council meeting, has actually been cancelled. So that forum is not even available to us anymore, and therefore we need to change our response to what we decided at the last council meeting. These are fast-moving events, Mr. Mayor, and we need to respond accordingly. We can't afford to wait, and I think it would be absolutely incomprehensible to people if, as a council, we didn't discuss these urgent matters tonight. It really would be the elephant in the room. Therefore, I move that we suspend council procedure number 11 to allow us to discuss local government reorganisation tonight, a motion I want to put forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. That we have now a proposal to move to suspension of the procedural rule 11 in my handbook, which means you need someone to second that motion, and then we will allow other members to come in before we have a vote. So, is there anyone that can second that proposal of yours, Councillor Townsend?
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Pate. I will second that.
Thank you for seconding that motion. Sorry, that proposal to suspend. Is there any member before we go to a vote for suspension? Chris, are there any people that want to speak at this moment of time?
Just bear with me, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there are Councillor Howard Baker, Councillor Cosima Townley have requested to speak.
Okay, Councillor Baker, can you please proceed? Councillor Baker?
You missed the best part then, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I was all excited and getting going. Right, I'm getting quite cross at the way this council is treating the Constitution. It's been there for hundreds of years in one way or another. Thank you, B, saying, oh God, I hope he appears for you. But the Constitution's there for a reason, and it's to make people think, give them time to think. And although Councillor Townsend wants to push this through, there is no real immediacy that he's asking for. The tanks are not at the door of the town hall. If we wish to have a meeting about it, the mayor, and he can say so this evening quite now, say, I wish to have an extraordinary meeting of the council to be held on Thursday, the 13th of August. This will give us more than 7 working days for the motion to be written up, clearly defined, and explained from one thing or another, rather than knee-jerk reactions from the Labour Party, which just seem to be politicising everything, rather than having well thought out, contemplated and rational viewpoints. Knee-jerk reactions are very bad, and they always have been. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I ask you to move an extraordinary meeting.
Let's deal with this suspension proposal first for the time being. Only one thing at a time, Councillor Baker. Let's move on to Councillor Townley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fast moving indeed. It wasn't a hostile move from County Hall. It's the inevitable. And I would like to remind Councillor Townsend that only today, Preston City Council, his Labour colleague there, has written to the Secretary of State asking for a review of the local government structure in Lancashire himself and proposing a unitary council of Preston, South Ribble, Chorley and West Lancashire. And that also Blackburn with Darwen has done the same to ask for the Eastern Unitary. So I do think we need to be getting on this bus and stop hiding our heads in the sand.
Thank you, Councillor Townley. Can we bring Councillor Briggs, I believe? Am I right, Chris? Is anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Briggs and Councillor Fewings have requested to speak.
Okay,
thank you very
Councillor Briggs, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to come back to Councillor Townsend's comment. I am about to write to the leader of Lancashire County Council, and I'm also going to write to Robert Jenrick to tell him what Burnley Council are doing. I am not interested one bit in what Blackburn decided they want to do. It's up to them. I am saying that we are not joining with anybody right at this moment in time until the white paper comes out. And I want to make this 100% sure with all you councillors and the people of Burnley, I am not in any support whatsoever with the leader of Lancashire County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. Can we have Councillor Fewings, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I've been one of those councillors that comes on to these video chats, and when we used to meet in the chamber, I'd be standing up talking about open, transparent and democratic processes at this council. I think that it's just incredible that Councillor Baker thinks that we have that already, and that our constitution is something to be proud of. I'm constantly saying how we really need to concentrate on that, and there's a lot of work to be done. I think I'm one of the only councillors that thinks we should have, you know, a committee system to give people fair voices, make sure that all residents are represented, and that we're able to make better decisions and seek consensus together. But unfortunately, sometimes you do end up having your hand forced by the actions of others that haven't consulted you, and that's exactly what has happened with Lancashire County Council deciding to press ahead with this without any buy-in from any district councils. I really do think that we are worryingly there's a worrying lack of information about what our council's position is on this. We passed a motion at the last full council, which wasn't that long ago, to say that we would wait until the white paper came out in September. That has been completely run roughshod over by other councils, that members who sit in this chamber are elected to represent the residents, and frankly, how they have voted for this, I do not understand. I will be supporting the motion to suspend standing orders because I think it is the lesser of two evils. We need to look at this now and make it clear that we are not happy for our council to just be completely scrapped and for Town Hall to be moved to Blackburn. And for that reason, I'll be supporting the motion. I hope other people do too. Just one final point. I am a little bit confused in all of these meetings we have about the combined authority, which would result in the county council being scrapped, as to why the county councillors don't have to declare a financial interest in those matters. So I'll just put that out there for anyone to think about.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fewings. I believe you had a point of personal explanation, Councillor Baker. Could you please explain?
Yes, I'd just like to shoot Mr. Councillor Fewings down again. I've also been promoting the committee system for many months, and if not years now. So you're not the only one, so don't think you are. The complaint I have about the Constitution is that we need time to understand what is happening. Tonight, Councillor Cosimer has just thrown in a thing that said something else, adding more information to it. Let's find some information. Let's find out exactly what's happened, and then at this stage, I'll certainly vote against it. I'm not arguing with that, but I think we should listen to every side of the argument rather than just one quick viewpoint. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, you mean you disagree with him rather than shooting him down, basically? Just trying to correct that shooting down phrase you used.
Sorry, what did you say, Mr. Mayor?
Basically, I get your point. You made your point clear. Thank you. Are there any other people that want to speak, Chris? Otherwise, we'll go to a vote.
There aren't, Mr. Mayor, no.
They're not. Okay, so we can now go to a vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Graham just has indicated she wants to speak.
She has just Mr. Mayor, yes.
I'll take you as the final speaker, Councillor Graham, if you can be succinct.
Seem to be a bit behind, like I've got a lag or something. I just want to say that Councillor Baker is basically asking for what this motion says. The motion says, it says 4 points to the motion. It basically says we need to say that we don't want to be bounced into this. And the fourth point is that we want an extraordinary meeting of the council. So if he's wanting to stop us having that motion debated, he's talking against himself.
Okay, that's it. Let's finish off the contribution. Thank you, Councillor Graham. Can we now look at voting on whether we can move Council's Procedure 11 under the Council Procedural Rules? So now you're voting to suspend Rule 11 in order for Councillor Townsend to talk about and present his motion. The poll is open.
Poll is
Again,
open, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
thank you, Chris. Again, those people that can't see the polling vote in front of you, please unmute and let the host, Chris, know.
Mr. Mayor, I did raise a point of order there.
Sorry. Point of order under which?
Councillor Baker, yeah. Just regarding to Councillor Graham, I'm not saying I'm against an extraordinary meeting. I'm for
Sorry, Councillor Baker. You're raising a point of order. Is that a point of order or is it a point of personal explanation?
It's a point of personal explanation. I'll go for that one. I was explaining that I'm not against an extraordinary meeting. In fact, I'm fully for an extraordinary meeting. And just saying, let's not vote on it tonight. Let's wait a week or so to get all the information and know exactly what we're talking about. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. So we can now have this, nobody to speak on this now. Let's go straight to the vote again. So, Chris, fire away again.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the vote is open and members are voting. There are still some who need to cast or submit their votes.
I can't see my vote.
Neither can I.
Right, okay. Just bear with me.
Councillor Motter's head struggling with it as well.
Yeah, the vote is open and 35 members have voted. Can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that for those that can't vote, that we take their vote manually once the vote is closed?
Yeah, okay. So it's Councillor Margaret Lishman and Councillor Mottershead and myself. So when the vote is closed, Chris will ask you for your votes.
Yeah, that's everyone voted via the three councillors you just mentioned, Mr. Mayor. So I'll close the poll now.
Councillor Mottershead?
4.
4, okay. Oh, okay, my pause just come through now. And sorry, Councillor Lishman, Margaret Lishman?
4.
Myself, 4.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've noted those down. The poll is just closing. It's just a few seconds before it closes. Hopefully, I will display it now. I'm conscious of the 3 members whose manual votes that I've got. I'll just scroll down if everyone else can confirm that the vote is recorded correctly.
I think I did vote in the end. Sorry, Chris.
Right. Okay. I'll show. Everyone happy with their voting? So it's 34 votes. 34, 35, 36 votes for, including the 2 manual ones, and 4 against.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Chris. So Council Procedure Rule 11 has been suspended according to that vote, which means I invite Councillor Townsend now to put forward his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And firstly, thank you to councillors for allowing me to present this important motion tonight. It is barely 2 weeks ago that we made a decision in terms of our response to a combined authority, and there were 3 key factors that we put into the decision that we made. One, that we would wait for the England devolution white paper before making any decisions. Secondly, that we wanted to work together with all other councils on a consensual basis, and we wanted no preconditions regarding simplification of council structures to enable a combined authority. Now, Councillor Driver's letter that was received this week and sent out rides coach and horses completely through that, and I believe it's probably even before we communicated formally what this council had actually decided to him through a formal meeting. So I think it's only right that we are discussing this tonight. We've been ignored and, in my view, treated with contempt by the county council in their approach to this. I've already mentioned earlier that I'm not proposing that we change any policy tonight. I don't think that's what we need to do. I think our policy was very clear 2 weeks ago. The motion basically before you tonight restates the position of July the 15th Council. Just before I move on, can I confirm that basically everybody has got sight of the motion? I did, out of courtesy, pass it to officers today to make sure that all councillors could see it, so it was not a surprise. So hopefully everybody else had time to read it. But it restates our position of July 15th Council, and it's now intended to use various mechanisms to garner support for our position that this is not the right time to be considering this. The evidence tells us that it's extremely difficult at the best of times to implement local government reorganisation. A hostile act like this can only cause mayhem in Lancashire and a complete loss of focus in terms of what's going to be important over these next 12, 18 months, 24 months. We shouldn't be discussing this again tonight, but we're forced into it because of the hostile letter that has been received. Our focus needs to be on the health crisis, the economic crisis, the potential for a second spike of coronavirus, the nearby hotspots, and getting our kids back to school. That's what we need to be doing, not talking about local government reorganisation. They want to see our recovery plan, residents do, not this local government reorganisation, and they want to know what cash we're going to get from government to make sure that we get through it. So Resolution A talks about us needing to contact all our county councillors, I suggest across the county, because I'm sure there's lots of county councillors who have concerns just like us, and to make sure that we rally as much support as we can for the view that we have expressed. But I think there's particular emphasis that needs to be on our local county councillors to make sure that they are reflecting the views of this council and the residents that we support. Secondly, we really need to know what our MP is up to. Does he support the stance that this council has taken or not? Because ultimately there will have to be a final decision taken in Parliament for this, and we need to know what our MP is going to be talking about with his colleagues in government. Is he with us or will he be against us in terms of supporting what we want to do as a council going forward? The third one, C, I don't think we can really trust Councillor Driver to look after Burnley's interests anymore. 3 years ago, when I was leader of this council, I gave him the benefit of the doubt and allowed him to become chair of the Leaders Forum and spokesperson for Lancashire leaders on devolution and combined authority matters. I'll hold my hand up. It now was a mistake, was wrong. He's failed to build a consensus, and now he's basically throwing Burnley under the bus. So I think we need someone else in charge of the Lancashire Leaders Forum. It cannot be Councillor Driver trusted with looking after Burnley's interests. And point D goes back to the open and transparency discussion that we've already had. If an invitation for a proposal does come from government to Lancashire County Council, that is when we need to have another meeting urgently to discuss what our policy then is going to be in going forward to face the new reality that we then face. So I'm hoping that some of our Conservative colleagues take the opportunity tonight to tell us what was going on behind closed doors this last weekend, when they were obviously drawing lines on maps behind closed doors, and which then emanated in Councillor Driver's letter to all council leaders. So on that note, Mr. Mayor, I move the motion in front of you this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Townsend, thank you for that. And before I ask that to be seconded, can I remind all members, can you please, if you're not speaking, can you please mute yourself? It is just common courtesy nowadays in these meetings to just please mute yourself while others are speaking. Is there a seconder for this motion?
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Pate. I second this motion and reserve the right to speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Pate. Now, Chris, are there any members that want to speak on this motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Shah Hussain.
Yeah.
And can you confirm Councillor Commis, that you've requested to speak?
Yes, I have.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Shaw Hussain and Councillor Tom Thomas.
I did see Councillor Townley before.
And so have I.
Yeah, I thought I saw your name there, Councillor Townley. I would never miss you off, Councillor Townley.
You have indeed, Mr. Mayor. Yeah,
Thank you.
You have indeed.
Okay, so we'll have Councillor Hussain first. Councillor Lishman's saying your name as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, and I want to support this motion. I believe as a borough, this is important. This has come suddenly, and as such, we should debate it, like the motion said, have an extraordinary meeting just on this subject and support it. But what I want to hear about is the Conservative leader, Councillor Hosker. If I do remember, a couple of, it might be months or this time last year in a local election, he put a leaflet out saying that he's fighting against the council. It's the Labour controlled council taking Burnley away and bringing it with Blackburn, merging with Blackburn, and a vote for Labour is a vote for taking Burnley Council into Blackburn. Want to just hear his views on it. Unfortunately, he's not here. It'd be interesting to see what his other colleagues say, but this is a really important for local government, because I think people in Burnley would want local representation, and what Councillor Driver has suggested is totally against that. And how he's going to do it, I'm not sure. It's totally undemocratic. There's not been anything in the past. We've had a referendum on elected mayor within Burnley, which was rejected. So I'm not sure what the people of Burnley is going to think with this proposal. So it's vitally important that we do discuss this issue and let it be known the Labour Party are looking into this. We're not going with Blackburn, but we want to have an open debate on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Can I bring in Councillor Commis, please, to speak on this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just suggest to Councillor Hussain that asking questions of councillors that are not present is probably not very fruitful. In general terms, as regards this motion, I'm not entirely sure what its outcome would be if it were passed. Obviously, we've heard from Councillor Townley that there has been a fresh letter written by Preston City Council. Certainly, my understanding is that any authority can put forward their own ideas. I don't see that, on the face of it, we're any more threatened by Lancashires than we would be by Blackburn with Darwin's or Preston's. And therefore, I'm not entirely sure what positive outcome there would be from passing this motion. If we're speaking about the combined authority and the options that are in front of us, there's certainly going to come a time when we may have to take some very difficult decisions, when we may have to even die in a ditch to protect local democracy. That day isn't today. We're not fundamentally in a different position to where we were at the last meeting, where we agreed that the 15 district councils would work together to formulate their own ideas of the best way to take local government forward. And I really don't see what has altered from that point to this. I don't see that the LCC sending a letter really materially affects us at all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Commis. Let's bring in Councillor Townley now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to say, Councillor Townsend has spent years on this subject. So to suddenly say that it's unexpected and we're being railroaded into anything is a bit rich. Also, to state secret discussions. I mean, coming from someone who has spent years in secret discussions and non-inclusion of most councillors, I find that rather rich. Also, Conservative with a small c. Let us be under no illusion here. We are moving into a new era. Everybody else is moving forward. We need to be on that bus. If we want a slice of the cake, we need to be at the table. My colleague, Councillor Comys, is quite right. Nothing is going to happen very fast, or certainly not in the present until after the white paper. Then things may move fast indeed, and we certainly want to have our ducks in a row. The idea that the county has gone off on its own way, as I said tonight, both Blackburn and Preston have put in their own bids, and other councils will undoubtedly be preparing them this very moment. I would advise my colleagues to have another meeting. Of course, we do need to discuss this, but to pretend that this has come as any form of surprise, I'm really shocked that members of this council could be so naive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townley. Can I bring Councillor Maggie Lishman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've no problems with this motion. I think, and I say this with some trepidation with Councillor Townley present, the arrogance of the Conservative group on the County Council because we don't seem to be able to have proper discussions at Lancashire's leaders group, to suddenly go forward. And in a way, the arrogance of the Preston group and the Blackburn group to do the same. I do think it's important that we perhaps should have an additional amendment to this, which talks about us looking about what we consider would be the best option for us as a borough if we did need to look at reorganisation, so that we should perhaps add that amendment in rather than sitting back letting people do things to us. Perhaps we ought to be more proactive in those concerns. The motion as it stands, I have no problem with whatsoever. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lishman. Are there any other people that want to speak? I know Councillor Shah said you want to speak, but unfortunately you can only speak once on a motion, Councillor Hussain.
Mr. Mayor, it's Luqman. Just
point of explanation.
Okay. Can I bring Luqman in first before I bring you in for your point of explanation? Sorry, Luqman, sorry.
I'm not a councillor, unfortunately.
Sorry, I know.
Or so say, fortunately.
I thought talking to your aspiration then for a minute. Sorry.
Can I just clarify? Councillor Lishman, Margaret, has indicated that an amendment, is she putting forward a formal amendment, or is this just in talking that she suggested an amendment to mark? I just want a clarification on that.
I'd be happy to put that amendment in if somebody would second me, because I do think we should be more proactive about it, and I would hope that the Labour Party would support me in that.
So what's the formal amendment, please? Can you clarify it for Mr. Mayor?
That this council develops its own proposals around a suitable potential reorganisation for the area in conjunction with the combined authority proposal.
Is that the whole text of your amendment, or the existing text? From the original motion put by Councillor Townsend, Councillor Lishman.
Suggesting adding an extra item, Mr. Mayor.
Extra, as in line, at the.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
An additional point, which would be point E, I presume.
Okay, so we've got a proposal to amend the motion there, Luqman, am I right?
Yes, I didn't catch it all because my connection isn't great, but there seems to be an amendment. It needs a second. I presume Democracy colleagues have written the amendment down because I haven't been able to do so.
Can I just confirm, Democracy colleagues, did you pick
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, who's that?
Councillor Townley. Sorry, Councillor Townley. I'm certainly not suggesting we don't discuss further. We don't discuss the matter further, and I would willingly second Councillor Lishman's amendment.
So you are seconding Councillor Lishman's amendment to the original motion. Am I right, Councillor Townley?
Charles.
Yeah? Okay. Sorry, it was a bit of a bad line there. Democracy Office. Did
Charles, yes.
Yeah, Chair, could I just clarify? Yeah, could I just clarify the end of the motion? So I've got it that this council develops its own proposals around a suitable potential reorganisation in the area in conjunction with, and I missed that last bit.
With the development of a combined authority.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to sort of be the pedant on this, but that amendment itself, as it's read out, would potentially have to go back to the executive, because it is quite clear to develop a proposal for our own proposal for a local government reorganisation, which it appears to be, would definitely have financial expenditure attached to it. So I don't necessarily think that would be a suitable amendment. You could do it, but if that amendment was carried out, you couldn't debate it. So I don't think it's suitable in that regard.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Graham is requested to speak.
Yeah, sorry, can I just bring? I mean, and before I bring Councillor Graham in, Lookman, I need your legal expertise in this. So we've got a proposal to amendment proposal and a seconder. Can we bring other members in at the moment? Yeah, now, or do people need to look at that?
To be honest, I don't. It's one of those strange ones, because the amendment initially it didn't start off one which had which wasn't a motion on expenditure. But if we are to develop proposals, then it would become a motion with expenditure. So I don't feel that would be suitable. Otherwise, it would have to go back to the executive before it could come back to full council. It's one for members. So
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, could I facilitate matters?
Yeah.
Perhaps by suggesting that the amendment is altered slightly to task the executive with leading the council's development.
Okay, okay. As democracy officer, have you got that?
No, I don't think you could do that, because it's a council function. So I think we just need to be careful in terms of it. So I don't think, Councillor Lishman, that necessarily works.
In the meantime, can I bring Councillor Graham in, please? Because she's been waiting for a while. Whilst we just mull around whether council, what works.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
My connection is breaking up.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor. We can hear you, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, my connection seems to be poor tonight. I don't know whether it's the atmospherics. I do understand what Councillor Lishman is trying to do, but I think that the question she's asking is something that would be discussed at the extraordinary council meeting that the original amendment proposes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Graham. Let me get some movement on this particular issue at the moment. But I know Councillor Baker's got a point of order, so I'll take that point of order, Councillor Baker. I will take your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just to say that if Councillor Lishman's thing does go through, amendment does go through, and there is expenditure, then all debate tonight is stopped immediately. So nobody gets to say anything. So again, it's just back to the same thing I was saying. We needed a bit of time to think about the way we're going to approach this, not to dive off the board. However, that's as much as I want to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. So basically, we need to look at this, look from an expenditure point of view. And what Councillor Baker's point is that this is all. We need to go back to.
There's 2 points here. I think Councillor Graham's explained in layman's terms some of the concerns she had in relation to the amendment. If this amendment, and Councillor Baker's also answered my question as well quite well. So if Councillor Lishman's amendment is carried, then this would go back to the executive. So in view, and there would be no debate on it tonight. However, the question we need to ask to Councillor Lishman is that does she want to withdraw her amendment or continue with it in view of what Councillors Lishman and Graham have said?
Okay, yes, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Lishman.
Yes. So she dropped in for a quick consultation.
Okay, that's fine. So we wait for that to be.
I'm content to withdraw. I think the point I'm trying to make, and I think to some extent Councillor Baker's made it as well, we could have refined this motion rather more than we've got, because I think apart from writing to people to say we're not happy, we're not actually taking a proactive move about what our alternative would be. And I think to some extent it's important that we would do, but I don't want to stop us saying something. And of course, I don't want to stop the Labour Party being able to take the credit for doing it, do I?
So you're withdrawing?
I think we need to move on, so I'm happy to withdraw it if it doesn't make it feasible.
So thank you. So that has been withdrawn. I just have to bring in Councillor Shah Hussain. So this is the original motion we're talking about, which was proposed by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Liam Tate.
Councillor Khan and Councillor Baker's got a point of order.
But one second. Before the point of order, I did see a point of personal explanation, which I think I'm going to take it first from Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The point of explanation was the point that I was raising was there was a leaflet out by the UKIP party saying that a vote for Labour is vote for taking Burnley into Blackburn. Now it seems that it is opposite. A vote for Tory is vote for taking Burnley into Blackburn. Can Councillor Commis, who can answer this question because he was part of the UKIP party, respond to that question? And I'm sure it will be a fruitful answer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, you've explained, you've clarified your question again to Councillor Commis. I appreciate that. Now I know Councillor Baker's got a point of order. Let's bring Councillor Baker in first, and then we'll have any member can come in on the normal original motion which Councillor Townsend proposed. So Councillor Baker, can you have your point of order?
Yeah, I think Luckman may. Can you hear me? I think Luckman will shoot me down on this one because all I'm thinking of is if we decide something tonight, we can't bring this back up again for 6 more months because we've debated something. But I'm not sure whether we can, if it's another letter we're sending or another approach, then that's probably quite safe. So in which case I'll withdraw my point of order and my explanation.
I've noticed tonight there's lots of point of orders and lots of personal explanations. I'll take this final one on this issue for personal explanation by Councillor Commis. Unless we'll draw a line under this. Councillor Commis.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's draw a line under it after this. That would be convenient. Just for Councillor Hussain's benefit, you're referring to a leaflet that was put out some time ago, and it was accurately portraying your policy at the time. If your policy has altered since then, I'm very happy about it because I was opposed to that policy and remain opposed to it. I would like, as an ideal, to retain Burnley Borough Council as an independent entity. Thank you.
You have explained yourself pretty clearly there, Councillor Commis, on your comments. Now, again, any member who wants to come in on the proposed motion by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Pay. I know Councillor Tony Martin wants to come in. Am I right? Chris, anybody else you can see besides Councillor Martin?
Checking now, Chair. No, not at this moment.
Okay, so I just see Councillor Martin. Can you please come in?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Mayor. My view is that this has been going on rumble for about 5 or 10 years. So theoretically, we don't need to do anything until the government gives us a go-ahead or not a go-ahead, as the case may be, for the proposal that's been put forward, not just by Blackburn Council, not now just by Lancashire County Council, but by other councils, because I understand Lancaster City Council's already writing to the Minister saying they want to go up into Cumbria and to merge with Barrow and other places. But the one thing that I do remember from the previous local government reorganisation that ended up in tears in Lancashire was that the Boundary Committee were very clear, or the Electoral Commission were very clear, about you can't just have a solution for your patch. You've got to have a solution for the whole of Lancashire. So if you're talking about doing a solution that makes Burnley the centre of the universe, Blackburn the centre of the universe, or Oswaldtwistle the centre of the universe, what you've also got to do is address the problems they've got up in Lancaster and the problems they've got down in Skelmersdale and Orskirk. Now that, I think, is far beyond the capacity of the officers that we've got in Burnley Council. And it's no disrespect to them. They're not policy officers. They don't monitor the population in the rest of the county. They don't look at trends about building in other places. They concentrate on what we want them to do, which is look after Burnley. So I think until we get a lot more information about whether the government thinks it's a runner that all of this is just complete speculation and politicians, as usual, going for the instant headline, and we should adopt a position where we take a back seat, listen to what the government is saying, and then we can make a reasoned and responsible response. Because if they say, for example, that it's impossible for Ribble Valley to go up to Lancaster because its community of interest is obviously with Blackburn Burnley, and it pushes it back into the proposed unitary authority that we've got at the moment, that might be something that we might need to consider, not just politically, but also about whether the people of Sabden do have a loyalty and, you know, use places like Burnley and Blackburn as their shopping centres rather than Lancaster. So I think it's far too early for us to be jumping in and deciding what we want to be the fate of the people of Burnley, the people of Lancashire, until we've seen some of the options and find out what the government is saying is a runner and not a runner. That's my two penneth. Thank you very much.
Councillor Martins, thank you so much. Just a quick one. We want to wish you a very happy birthday as well, Councillor Martin. Looking good for 21. Well done, mate.
I was expecting to do something better than this on my birthday.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Anybody else before we go back to the seconder and the proposer? Anybody else, Chris, on that?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Let's finish that. That's been a healthy little debate there. Colleagues have come in. Let's come back to Councillor Pear. Would you want to come in as the seconder of this motion?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. Just to say that as a council, I think we've made our views clear in previous meetings, and I think that we've just been utterly ignored by the leadership at Lancashire County Council. What we're aiming to do here is just reiterate the view of the Burnley Council residents, everybody else around here. This really matters to the residents of Burnley. So I read this in the newspaper just like any other resident does. And it feels like a done deal in those words. And they need to see that there aren't done deals, that there aren't deals without consultation, and that no matter what the end result, people need to feel like they have, and the people that have been elected for them have had their say and haven't been railroaded. The view that LCC have given in the press definitely gave the impression that this could be pushed through by September. So of course our residents want to see that we're doing something and that, you know, we're not just pressing at a case that is a long way off. Local government reorganisation is not what is at the forefront of residents' minds right now. Their focus is not surprisingly on staying safe in a pandemic. They're concerned about their jobs, their health and their families, and people will rightly feel that this is a reorganisation through the back door whilst we're all looking towards a pandemic. I think what we just need to do is make sure that our silence isn't mistaken for our agreement with anything. That's why we have a need to speak out tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pate. Now can I finally bring in Councillor Townsend, the motion proposer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to summarise a couple of things of what I've just heard from people contributing. Firstly, to Councillor Commis, and to be honest, on a lot of issues, Councillor Commis speaks a lot of sense, but I think it's probably the most naive thing I've ever heard from him in this council chamber when he thinks there's been no material change. When the leader of the county council starts issuing letters basically saying he's proposing to carve up Lancashire into 3 and hopes to get an invitation from government, that is a massive material change and a statement of real difference from where Councillor Driver and the county council have been previously. In terms of Councillor Townley and Councillor Lishman's respective contributions, I think they're really, in terms of adding on an extra bit to the motion, even though it couldn't be done, I could see the intent. And let me just say, I, along with many others, accept things are changing. We've seen it for quite a period of time. And I, amongst, have probably got more scars on my back than anybody else in this council chamber about local government reorganisation and proposals from people in this council chamber who now seem to be saying that it's probably something we need to be looking at seriously, when for the last 5 years they've never had a positive word to say about it. But I, for one, will welcome constructive decisions when the time is right. And that really comes to Councillor Martin's contribution, which I agree with. in terms of we have to wait until government tell us what their intentions are. And they haven't. And that's what this council said needed to happen. We have to wait and see what government's intentions are. It's the others who have jumped the gun, not us. It's Lancashire County Council, it's Preston. Councillor Townley's clear, they've jumped the gun, they've put the letters in before they've even seen what government's intentions are. So that is what we're just holding off for. I think we were in agreement at the last council meeting that change is coming. We know we'll have to face new realities. We know at the right time we're going to have to be positive about that. But it's others now who are trampling all over us, and they haven't even heard Burnley's view from 2 weeks ago. And point D of the resolution is about us facing that new reality. If there's an invitation that goes to LCC to basically accept the proposal that 3 unitaries is a way forward for Lancashire and invites a formal proposal, that is the time when we really need to get serious and start developing our own policy to make sure that we don't get trampled all over. So on that, Mr. Mayor, I hope that I know that some councillors are probably not going to support this tonight, but I hope the vast majority do, and we can send a clear message to those who are jumping the gun that Burnley's not going to be trampled all over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Can we now please go to the vote? An electronic poll will now be conducted as normal procedures. Please, if you cannot see the poll, please unmute and let us know.
Mr. Mayor, there are still 3 votes that haven't been cast. Is anyone having any problems casting the vote?
Please let us know now if you can't cast your vote.
I think mine's worked.
I'll have a look. Councillor Mottershead.
If no one else is indicating there's a problem, Mr. Mayor, I'll close the poll and then we can view the results. And if any member wishes to give a manual vote, we can add it in at that time. That's okay?
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Right. So I will, hopefully everyone can see the results now. Roll down the page. Has everyone's vote been recorded now? Does anyone wish to give a manual? But it seems to me that all votes have been recorded now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And that motion has passed.
Yes, 35 for, 3 against and 3 abstentions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chris. So that's passed now, so we can move on to the main headline of this meeting, which is item 6A, appointment of the Section 151 officer, to seek approval of the recommendation from the Appointments Committee regarding the appointment of the Head of Finance and Property Section 151 officer, following the recruitment and selection process undertaken as per recommendations 2I and 2II on page 15. Councillor Charlie Briggs, are you there to move your report?
I'm here, I'm here, Mr. Mayor, and I move the report.
Okay, I hope all is well on your side, Councillor Briggs.
I'll find out in a few minutes when this is finished.
Okay. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you second the report?
Second the report, Mr. Mayor. And if I could just crave your indulgence for one moment in full council to say thank you so much to the previous incumbent of this post, who I know has served a number of administrations extremely well, and we shall miss his good services, and I look forward to the good services of the new incumbent.
Councillor Lishman, I hope your warm words are noted within this meeting and council agenda minutes. Thank you, Councillor Lishman. Is there any member who wants to come in here, Chris?
No one's requested to speak at this point, Mr. Mayor.
We'll just go for an electronic poll then, as per requirement for the item. So can we have electronic vote on this, please?
Poll's now open, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've just submitted my vote. If you can't submit your vote, let us know now.
That's everyone voted, Mr. Mayor. I'll close the poll now.
That was quick, wasn't it, Chris?
Here are the results. I'll just scroll down. So if anyone wishes to confirm vote is not shown correctly, no one's requesting from that point of view, Mr. Mayor, and that has been passed 41 for the motion.
So item 6A has been passed on the agenda. Now we can move over to item 6B on the agenda, pavement licenses. Councillor Charlie Briggs, will you please move your report, or the report?
I'll move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you second this report?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any member? I believe.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, bear with me. Howard Baker is requested to speak. Councillor Baker, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
And Councillor Townsend.
Is there an amendment coming from somebody here? Am I right? Somebody might have an amendment?
Oh, I may have an amendment as well.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Townsend here. I do have an amendment. I have distributed it earlier today.
I saw you, yes, sir.
I was just a bit slow on the keyboard getting in first.
Okay, so you've distributed an amendment. So is that amendment being distributed to everybody, Councillor Townsend?
I haven't seen it.
Chair, it was emailed to everybody with the other amendment that came with Councillor Townsend's motion. It was at the end of that email.
So this is the procedure. We've got an amendment proposed. Have we got a seconder for that amendment?
Mr. Mayor, can I just talk to the amendment? Just
sorry. You want to propose your amendment? I want to say something about your amendment. Sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say that we welcome this government initiative for pavement cafes. It's certainly a step forward and something that can help the hospitality sector in terms of the terrible situation we've got with COVID-19. And this can help in terms of social distancing to get extra turnover into some of these cafe outlets. So there is an amendment that we would like to do. Recommendation 1 of the report to replace what is currently written at recommendation 1 with the pavement licence application fee will be free of charge. So rather than it being £25 as in the current report, we would make it free of charge. And I would also like to add a recommendation 3, which is licences will prohibit the use of outside heaters. So those are the amendments, Mr. Mayor, and hopefully everybody's had sight of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend, for that presentation of your amendment. Can I have anybody to second Councillor Townsend's amendment?
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Pate. I second that and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Pate. Now, can I bring in any member who wants to speak on this amendment?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Councillor Graham, Councillor Fewings and Councillor Cant.
And Councillor Baker, please.
Yeah, can I bring in Councillor Baker first? Because he,
Councillor Khan, it's Lookman again. Just in terms of the expeditiousness of the meeting, do you want to ask Councillors Lishman and Councillors Briggs whether or not they're happy with the amendment, so that can become the substantive motion, and then we can debate the substantive motion? In the first instance, it's one for you, Mr Mayor, or you can ask members to speak.
I'll ask Councillor Lishman and Councillor Briggs if they want to accept the amendment.
Can I leave this to Councillor Briggs, because as I happen to know, Councillor Margaret Lishman has just stepped out of the room.
Councillor Briggs, would you like to, what's your views on this amendment? There seems to be no view on this, so I think we're going to have to go to any member. I'm sorry, there's no response back from the original. Yes, exactly.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Briggs is just trying to call me. He's struggling to get on. I don't think we can progress the meeting until a member who's struggling to get on can get on. So, Chris, can you look at bringing Councillor Briggs back on?
Yes, I will do. Just bear with me, Mr Mayor.
Hey, bud.
We're back on. Councillor Briggs, can you hear us okay?
I'm just not, won't let me on.
You're having a tough night tonight, Councillor Briggs.
Councillor Briggs, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Now, did you get a chance to listen to Councillor Townsend's amendment?
Right. Yes. Sorry, I'm back on now. Yes, I heard. Yes, I heard it, and I'm quite happy with it.
So, from a procedural point of view, Lookman, if the original person to move the report is happy,
and the Councillor Margaret Lishman also needs to.
Yes, we need to hear back from Councillor Lishman before we can proceed. So, Councillor Gordon Lishman.
Margaret Lishman.
I'll just say I will attempt quickly to communicate with her.
Yeah, we need to hear from her. I'm just trying to move this, obviously, progress, and there'll be opportunity to have a members coming in.
Yeah, okay. Hello, I'm sorry that she has definitely left the meeting.
Oh.
So, in that case, procedurally, Lookman, we can't hear from Councillor Lishman, who seconded it, so we're going to have to go to...
So as a result, we probably need to go to any member, and the amendment needs to go to a vote to become a substantive motion.
Fine, that's fine. Well, okay, that's fine. So let's go to any member, and the first person. Let me get the list right again. We had Councillor Baker, Councillor Graham,
Councillor Fewings, Councillor Townley. Councillor Cant has withdrawn his request to speak.
Okay,
so.
Thank you. Let's bring in Councillor Baker first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what Councillor Townley does, and it's very amenable, if you will, to say, let's wipe. Can you hear me? Let's wipe out the £25, but I'm more concerned the other way. If you look at what the pavement licence conditions include and how much checking and paperwork, etc., has to be done by officers in a time where we're already losing 3.4 million, then I would have said I was going to propose an amendment to say it's being set at £25 or perhaps nil. I'll accept that for those people that already have this licence in place through Lancashire County Council, etc. But for anyone new, I think we should be charging certainly somewhere near the £100 because there's certainly 5 or 6 hours work to do on each of these applications, and somebody has to pay for it, and I don't see why everybody else shouldn't stand it. That's it, Councillor. That's my thought on that.
So you're not proposing any amendment at the moment?
Well, I can't propose an amendment yet. The amendment's become the substantive motion. But I was hoping that Councillor Townsend might relax it and say, yeah, for anybody new applying, free for everybody that's already there, so there's no extra cost. But if anybody new wants to come along and do this and save £300-400 on Lancashire County Council's charges, then let's at least get £100. Somebody's got to pay for these staff we've got or need to employ.
Okay, that's for Councillor Townsend to reflect on later on. Can I bring in Councillor Graham, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think that Councillor Baker's read the details, the new legislation, because it's a consolidation of 4 different licences. So it's a new licensing regime. The reason why the Labour group has suggested that, that the application fee be set at £0 is to support businesses, supporting local businesses, people like, I don't know, Rhode Island Coffee Company, local businesses that have been suffering an awful lot over the last few months. And we think that they should have the right to put chairs, etc., out in front of their premises, so that they can observe social distancing. I also want to support the other amendment about no outside heating. I was really worried when we were talking about the possibility of outside chairs and tables, that we'd see all these flame throwing things and patio heaters all over the place, and they are extremely damaging to the environment. So I'm hopeful that you will support, everybody will support Councillor Townsend's amended amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. You mean amendment?
Amendment, yeah, I know what you know what I meant.
Yeah, we got you. Councillor Fewings, can we bring you in, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm supportive of the new recommendation 3 to avoid patio heaters, because I totally agree with what Councillor Graham has just said. In terms of the amendment to recommendation 1, I'm in agreement with the idea that we need to help local businesses, but I think we've gone a little bit too far with making it free for everyone. I think we should make it free for local businesses. I'm going to be supporting this amendment, but I just want to make everyone aware. I did circulate it to officers, and I suppose I thought it would be circulated to everyone that I've submitted a further amendment, and I'll talk about that later. But it's to focus on the free license being just, you know, local and small businesses, rather than the likes of Costa Coffee and McDonald's, who can well afford to pay for their license.
Thank you, Councillor Fewings, for your contribution. Can I bring in Councillor Townley in, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You know, it's a very difficult one, this, but at the end of the day, we are, I feel it is better for people to pay something than nothing. It is paperwork, however one wants to see it. There's also the policing that comes into it. I do not feel that £25 is an onerous amount to make sure that these, at least certainly some of the paperwork is covered, or work is covered by that. It certainly wouldn't impinge on any business recovery. If a business really couldn't pay the £25, and it really isn't going to be a business that's going very far. So I'm afraid I'm against the amendment.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you, Councillor Townley. Can I bring in Councillor Ferrier, please? I think you want to come in on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been very late request to speak. I think the pay of £25 is quite a token amount, really. I know we have to support local businesses. I mean, I'm the first one to champion that. But I think £25 is, I think our belly cover the admin cost in itself. You know, I think it's quite a reasonable token cost for businesses. The second part of the amendment about the heaters, I do certainly understand the concerns with the environmental aspects of it with heaters that use some sort of fossil fuel. Although I would also clarify, what about those that use this electrical heater? Because I know more and more of our national grid is being supplied from renewables. So over time, the energy from the electrical heater, even though they are quite energy hungry, will be in time 100% sourced from renewables or less carbon extensive sources. So I think that probably wants perhaps focusing more from not allowing fuel burning heaters, but perhaps maybe electrical heaters. To try and be fair on people who might be outside, especially in the winter months, but it's probably frightfully cold sometimes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrier. Appreciate that. Chris, is there anybody else? I think we're okay now. We can move back to our seconders.
No more requests, Mr. Mayor.
So let's move back to Councillor Leanne Hay. You had the right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to put on record that this is obviously a very specific licence, which is around street cafes and doesn't replace what is already out on the streets that people in the public may have seen, which is things like the setups outside some of the larger pubs and some of the larger cafes. But at the end of the day, I think it's about setting a standard which says that times have been really tough. There's going to be a low number. It actually says on the report that there's no financial implications from this. So, you know, the amount of £25 that we're going to be collecting is going to be quite a small number anyway. £25 to somebody who's got a small coffee shop that is basically dishing out cups of tea and cake and is an independent trader, maybe in their first year of trading in Burnley Town Centre. That's quite a number that they've got to sell through the day at a time of when people are just not coming out for cups of tea. And that could mean the difference between that business actually wiping its face that day. So it's about a timing issue for me. You know, maybe later then this is the sort of thing that we should be looking to increase a fee on. But today, we shouldn't be imposing new charges on anybody at a time when the government's insisting that people should be outside, and we want to encourage that. We want to encourage our town to get back on its feet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I bring in Councillor Mark Townsend, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I welcome the constructive debates that we've had from members around this subject. Just to come back to a few comments that were made, I welcome the comments of Councillor Fewings and Councillor Graham in respect to the heaters. I think it sends a clear signal that even though times are tough, we do have to make a stand as far as green issues are concerned and continue to send a clear signal to the public that despite everything that's going on, green matters, and we have to keep that in mind. On Councillor Ferrier and Councillor Townley, and in terms of the costs, I think when I look at this, you know, really, are we talking about there's going to be 100 cafes who want this, or even if there's 200? What we're talking about is £2,500 or £5,000 at the end of the day. But I think what's important is, as much as anything, is the signal it sends that we as a council are here to help business. And it sends that clear signal that we're here to help and help them through the crisis. So for the sake of a couple of £1,000s, I think it's important that we send that correct signal. And just coming back to, I think there was it was Councillor Baker and Councillor Fewings who talked about almost like a form of means testing around this, which is, I think Councillor Baker said, so the new customers for these licences should pay, the old ones shouldn't. But every time you do something like that, you're building up the costs, you're building up the checks, and you're building in the red tape and the bureaucracy. And those where people say, I'm a grey. I'm in between. So which side of the line do you fall? We don't really want to do that. It needs to be clear cut. It needs to be quick. And I think Councillor Fewings had thrown in, are you a local firm or are you part of a chain that might be in and out of the borough? Again, it all adds to the complexity for something that just needs to be very, very simple for these cafes who have gone through really hard times, that they can get their applications in, it's free of charge, and they can get chairs and tables outside their cafes and get customers sitting them as quickly as possible. So I hope the amendment is passed, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townsend. Can I, before we go to a vote, can I actually bring in Councillor Briggs as the original mover of the item, if you want to say anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy with what Councillor Townsend's been saying. Yes, we are in a very bad position right at this moment in time with the COVID. I do understand that it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sorry, it went again. I do understand that we are a little bit short with money at the council, but all in all I want to do is to look after the cafes and the people who are investing in Burnley, and let's get on with it.
Okay, I think that's fine for us to now move to an electronic vote. So in a minute, you're going to see the poll available, so you can vote for this amendment proposed by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Leanne Payne. Any problems? You know the drill, just let us know.
There may be two members who haven't cast their vote yet. Is anyone having any problems? That's now down to one member who hasn't cast their vote. If you're happy, Mr. Mayor, I'll close the poll and we can...
Yeah, you've got 5 seconds to vote, guys. Who wants to vote? Can you got 5 seconds? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you close the poll, Chris?
Right, I'll just scroll down, members, and you can check your responses. Please let me know if there's any that don't accurately reflect your vote.
Everybody happy with their vote?
In that case, Mr. Mayor, there are 32 votes for the amendment, 8 against and 1 abstention.
Okay, so now this amendment has become the substantive motion. Councillor Fewings, did you want to come in some stage at this? Because you had an amendment, you said.
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. I submitted the amendment, but I don't think it's been circulated to everyone, so I'll read it out for everyone. It's an amendment to replace recommendation 1 again, which has already been altered. So I'm proposing that recommendation 1 is changed to read: the pavement licence application fee will be £25 unless the applicant is in receipt of small business rates relief, discretionary business rates relief, or mandatory charitable relief, in which case it will be free of charge. Now, I took the opportunity to speak to the officer who's going to be in charge of placing these licences, and we felt that a simple question, a tick box question to that effect on the form would deal with all of the concerns that Councillor Townsend raised about this being a difficult administrative process, and actually would make it far simpler and would more reflect what I think the original amendment is meant to do, which is to help smaller independent businesses have a zero fee, but those businesses that can afford and should pay and help with our administrative costs, given the 3.4 million projected deficit, that they will not get a free license. And you know, I'm thinking about Wetherspoons and Costa and McDonald's. These are people that can afford to pay their way, and we really shouldn't be subsidising them with taxpayers' money. So I really hope that you support my amendment. Just want to pick up one thing that Councillor Ferrier said on the last motion, if you'll indulge me, about the renewable electricity for heaters. I did think about that, but it would be really complicated because you'd have to get the venues to commit to using a 100% renewable supplier. And I don't think that is something that can fit within the administrative burden, because a lot of electricity is still produced by fossil fuels in this country. So I hope you'll support my amendment. I think it gets where everyone wants to go, which is that those that can afford to pay will pay and contribute to the administrative burden, and those that need our support right now get that support, and it adds no additional time to the form and application process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fewings. Just let me, I can see people coming in with the right to speak, and let me just move on with this process. We need someone to second that amendment. Can anybody second Councillor Fewings' amendment?
I second it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, is that Councillor Hall, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. So now we can go to any member, and I see who we've got there. We've got a point of personal clarification by Dale. Councillor Ferrier? Chris?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and right to speak from Councillor Commis and Councillor.
So let's bring in Councillor Commis and Councillor. I missed the last bit.
Councillor Commis, Councillor Count, and Councillor Ferrier as a personal point of explanation.
Let me take Councillor Ferrier because I saw his name crop up first on the screen. Councillor Ferrier, what would you like to personally clarify?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's very, very brief. About the heater thing, Councillor Fewings, when I said about the electrical heater, based on the operator of the electrical heater, just simply that, not the actual supplier of the electricity. It's based on the idea that the overall trend of power generation in the UK is heading towards renewables. Just future planning, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Point noted there, Councillor Ferrier. Let's bring Councillor Commis in next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's as much a question as anything else. I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is that walking through Burnley, I always see the big chains. They already have outdoor seating areas. So I assume they already have some sort of license and wouldn't need to apply for and therefore pay £25 for this license. If I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected on that.
I'm sure in his wrapping up of the his words, I'm sure he'll be able to clarify that point you raised there, Councillor Cummins. So we'll have a chance at the end to bring Councillor Fewings in. And we've got Councillor Kant. Can we please have Councillor Kant in?
Yeah, just actually to clarify what Councillor Collins has just come up with. The major chains have already got pavement licences, such as Wetherspoons, Costa Coffee, etc., etc. They've already got them, so they wouldn't need to apply under this ruling. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you're welcome, Councillor Kant. You're very welcome. Am I right in saying, Chris, there's nobody else that wants to?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. No one else has raised a request.
So we can bring in Councillor Hall. Would you want to say something?
No, thank you.
Councillor Fewings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so I'll to answer that question first. Essentially, yes, they have a current license, but they're fully able to apply for this completely new licensing scheme and get a much bigger outdoor area to allow social distancing to happen within that outdoor area. So they still can apply to the scheme, is the first thing. The second thing is that if they can't apply to the scheme, then it doesn't matter if we support this amendment because they won't fill in the form. So that I'm not sure why it's relevant to the amendment. The final thing I want to make that I don't think anyone has really picked up on, I'm sure it's possibly understood by everyone, but this is not something that is open to just cafe businesses or restaurants. This is something that is open to all businesses. All businesses in the borough can apply to have an outdoor space for food and drink and catering. Now, obviously, they need to comply with health and hygiene and all that, but we could be faced with retail businesses wanting to do outdoor events to try and bring people in to have a drink or something like that outdoors, and then they are able to boost their business. And those big chain retail stores should also have to pay. So let's be clear that this is not just something for small little cafes. It's something that's open to every business to create an outdoor space for catering and food. And those people, if they're doing it for a business opportunity, I applaud that, but they should definitely contribute to our administrative costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fumes. I'm going to bring, before we go to the vote, I'm going to bring Councillor Charlie Briggs in because he originally moved the report. Do you want to say anything or not, Councillor Briggs?
Mr. Mayor, I'm okay. You know, I'm bereft of it. Thank you.
Thank you for being okay, Councillor Briggs.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Baker's raised a point of order.
Under which rule is Councillor raising a point of order?
Well, it was a section of 13 or something like that. Just to clarify, all I want to say is to clarify.
No, 1 second. I need to know the rule. What are you looking at, Councillor Baker?
Do you want to know which IRC? 11. No, 13. I can discuss anything under that. Motions that etc. can be raised if you're getting technical.
14.12, Councillor
very
Baker.
much.
Thank you.
All I want to say is that it doesn't apply to any business. It only applies to cafes, bars and restaurants. So Councillor Fewings is leading us up a gum tree again.
Okay, we're not going to get into that debate because I took that as a point of order under 14.2. But now we will now proceed very cordially towards an electronic vote.
Mr. Mayor,
can we have a clarification from the legal team on that, because that's incorrect?
Okay. Look, Councillor Townsend, did you?
Well, I thought as a mover of an amendment, I got a right to speak on this because it gave me some. I may be wrong, but that's why I didn't put an RTS in.
Lookman, am I right? I'm not sure we can allow people here on this because you've already had your discussion. Lookman, any guidance on this?
Yeah, Councillor Townsend can speak.
Okay, you can speak, but let me just clarify. Can we clarify the request made by Councillor Fewings? He said about legalities. Did you get that point, Lookman?
I haven't been involved in drafting of that report. The Council's Head of Legal and Democratic Services, who is also on this meeting, can perhaps answer Councillor Fewings' question.
Catherine, can you provide some light to this situation?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it is my understanding that businesses other than food and drink providers can take advantage of the licence and provide food and drink as ancillary to their existing businesses. So I believe Councillor Fewings is correct.
Okay, so that's clarified there. Now, I do apologise, Councillor Townsend. You may now come in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, to Councillor Fewings, we're not totally anti this, and we can see what you're driving to achieve. But I will just say that I do have some experience in this area in my day job, not for this council, but for another council. And when things start getting explained to me as it's just a form ticking exercise and that can be done, that's usually what it starts off as. But then within a few weeks, it turns into a bureaucratic nightmare because there's challenges and all sorts of things. And even though it's only 25 quid, people do get quite excited over any amount of money. And it ends up in a checking exercise of who's entitled to free and who's not. So I can see what he's driving to achieve, but I still think that the bureaucracy involved far outweighs the benefit that's going to be achieved on this one. So the Labour group will be abstaining on this one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. And once again, apologise. Let's move on towards the electronic vote now. Chris, can you please fire away? Thank you, Chris.
Has Margaret Wishing not returned as the original seconder to make a comment?
She's not, Councillor Roper, she's not here.
She's not come back?
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
Can I just ask, Mr. Mayor, have we been voting as I keep getting disconnected? And I've just this minute come back on.
Can you see your polling for you? Can you vote there?
No,
please?
I can't, Mr. Mayor.
So Councillor Birtwistle, you and Councillor Royal, at the moment, your votes will be taken verbally.
I don't know whether you can hear me, but I can't hear anything.
I can hear you crystal clear, as well as all the residents in Burnley, via YouTube, so we can hear you clearly. In a minute, we're going to ask you for your verbal vote, Councillor Royal.
Through you, Mayor, is anyone else struggling?
No, sorry, I still can't hear anything.
Can you hear? Can you hear me now, Councillor Royal? Can you hear me? No. Chris, can we type out whether Councillor Royal wants to vote via?
I can send her a message, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, if you just bear with me.
No.
Just for clarification, what we can do is send Councillor Royal a message. However, she would need to reply verbally because councillors should be able to be heard. That's what the legislation says.
Okay, can we just ask the question to Councillor Roland to ask if she can say it verbally, a vote, just for the sake of moving progress.
Councillor Royal, can you hear me now?
And Royal has left the meeting, so I'm not sure we're going to get a response back from Councillor Royal, Chris. So in that unfortunate situation.
No, she's not responded, Mr. Mayor, to the chat message. Let me just see if I can bring her back into the meeting. Just bear with me.
Can you take my vote while you're waiting?
Yeah. Can we take Councillor Birtwistle's verbal vote, please?
I'm voting for.
For the.
Did you get that?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear, Councillor.
Yes, thank you.
Chris, have we got everybody else voted?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'll close the poll for now, if that's okay.
Yeah, and we've got Councillor Birtwistle giving his verbal vote.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if after 3 minutes we can't get Councillor Royal back in, we can proceed because the meeting is still quorate.
So say that again, please, Imelda.
We could carry on without Councillor Royal. If we can't get back in within 3 minutes, we allow 3 minutes to try to rejoin. But if the meeting's still quorate, we proceed.
So you saying we should wait for Councillor Royal?
Only 3 minutes. Just
okay,
3 minutes, yeah. So I think we're almost there now with that.
Okay, I agree. Chris, can you please try and call Councillor Royal as well, because the votes are quite finely balanced. So it might require a mayor's casting vote if Councillor Royal would come in and voted against, otherwise it would be for. So, Chris, can you try and call Councillor Royal if she's coming back?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm just conscious that I'm sharing the screen. If I stop sharing the screen, I may not be able to get it back. Can you hear me, colleagues?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just bear with me, I'll make that call.
Well, she went upstairs, didn't she?
Okay. Oh, it's quite close, isn't it, this vote?
Can we scroll down the list so we can see the votes?
Yeah, Chris will do that in a second, Councillor Mottershead. Are you want to check your vote, mate?
Thank you.
Chris, can I just clarify?
Come on, Mr. Mayor, this needs to be sorted.
Yeah, we just Chris, can we just move progress? Have you taken Councillor Burwistle's vote in them numbers, Chris? Can we have some clarification of this voting? Can you hear me, Chris? Yeah. Oh, it's just getting. Sorry, just let me make the call to Councillor Royal. We're having challenging times with technology at this moment of time, but let's just have this call.
I'm going to try and I'll put your phone when I ask for voting against the motion. Okay, amendment rather. Bear with me. Colleagues in the meeting, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Colleagues in the meeting, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Chris.
I've got Councillor Royal on the phone. I'm now going to ask her to cast her vote. I'm hoping that you will be able to hear it if that is okay.
Yes,
Councillor Royal, can you give your vote for, against, or abstain for Councillor Fewing's amendment on pavement licence, please? Did colleagues hear that?
No.
Put it on speaker, please, Chris.
Can you say that again, please, Councillor Royal?
No.
Can you put it on loudspeaker?
Can you put your phone on loudspeaker, Chris?
It is on loudspeaker.
Can you ask Councillor Royal to speak a bit louder if you can?
Are you able to shout, please, Councillor Royal?
Yes, I will.
Has that come through, colleagues?
No, Chris, you bring it too close to the screen. Can you just leave it there? We can hear it. Just speak loud.
Go ahead, Councillor.
If you can tell us again, please, Councillor.
No.
Right.
Chris, what did you say?
I am on.
Councillor Royal is abstaining.
I heard that. I actually didn't hear that one. Just about. Okay. So.
Can we just check the vote? Can we check the votes and if the votes are casted correctly, then it passes.
Yeah, and the manual vote or available vote from Councillor Birtwistle was 4, and it makes the 4 votes up from 9 to 10. Should I just scroll through the screen again so colleagues can see, so members can see their votes?
And members, if they're not happy with the way if the vote's been cast incorrectly, please can you let us know quickly, please?
We're almost there.
Right. Any member, please, can you just, are we okay to accept that vote as it is? So your votes are okay, guys? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is the final vote now, Chris. So on that basis, what have we got now? Because it's that motion passes then.
Yeah, it's carried 10, 8, and 20 abstaining.
Yeah, so Councillor Fewing's amendment now becomes a substantive motion. And now that's carried, so now we will have a vote on this, Luckman.
Yes.
We will have this, now we'll have a final vote on this, whether this is going to become the final motion. That's passed. We'll move forward, yeah? Okay, so we're getting through this now, guys. A bit more patience. You're going to have to do that again with Councillor Royal again. Sorry about this, Chris. Let's move forward with this call.
Yes, just bear with me, Chair. I'll just open up the poll on the substantive motion.
So the amendment's passed. Now this is a substantive motion. We're voting on this.
Right, Mr. Mayor, I'll open the poll now and I'll give Councillor Royal a call back too.
Well done, Chris.
Right, the amendment was, we're voting now on the substantive motion. So it's whether you want to vote if I you vote further.
Chris, did we get a response from Councillor Royal?
Yes, I'll put her on loudspeaker. Should I close the poll? Has every member voted? Has anyone had any issues voting? Has everyone cast their vote?
Okay, I think we're all good. Chris, let's get Councillor Royal. Thank you for this, mate.
Councillor Royal, can you confirm your vote, please, for the substantive motion?
Yes.
4. I heard that. We heard that. She
It's
was
a vote
4.
for, Mr. Mayor.
I heard that loud and clearly.
Need to go now. Cheerio.
Okay then, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I should close the poll, Mr. Mayor.
That's very kind of you. We're getting there now, folks.
Right, I'll just share the results, and there's the verbal vote from Councillor Royal for 4, which would make that 30. I'll just scroll down if members can just shout out if their vote isn't recorded or is recorded incorrectly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that substantive motion has now passed. So great progress. That's all been done with. Item 6B is finished. Now we can move on to item 7. Nearly done, people. Questions under standing order number 10.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
None have been received. That's great in the sense that we now have concluded the business for tonight. That concludes. But can I just wish everyone who's celebrating tomorrow Eid Mubarak, and thank you very much for everyone's patience in this meeting and great character you've shown till the end. So well done, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, get some rest, and have a good holidays over the next few weeks.
Eid to you as well. Happy Eid. Yeah.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.
Mr. Mayor.
Happy.